Proposition 25 is a referendum on bail. And so what a referendum means is that the legislature enacted a law and you are being asked whether or not that law should go into effect or not. This is always confusing, so I'm going to put it out there. So what I'm about to describe to you in terms of changes, if you want that to happen, you vote yes. If you do not want it to happen, you vote no. So a little bit of background related to bail. There are really kind of two ways that you can obtain release from jail prior to trial. One is to bail out, which is a financial guarantee. Another way is that there is release on your own recognizance. That's where the judge decides that you can be released under certain conditions. For example, that you're promising to appear in court at future dates, etc. When individuals are paying cash bail, there are kind of 2 points where that could happen. When an individual is put in jail, they can pay bail based on this list that was put together by the county, or you can be released on bail once you show up in court for your first hearing. This is the 48 hours from your arrest. And the court basically goes through the process of figuring out what they deem is appropriate. What this initiative would do is that it would eliminate the cash portion, and it would shift to a new process where individuals would either be released automatically or based on their assessed risk of committing another crime or not appearing in court if they were released. And how this works is basically individuals who are arrested for most misdemeanors would generally be released from jail within 12 hours. Everybody else would generally have to undergo a risk assessment. And a key component of this proposition is that pretrial risk assessment tools that use underlying data to figure out what factors are more conducive to higher risks of committing another crime or not appearing in court if released, would be used to provide information on risk levels. Depending on those risk levels, certain individuals could be released prior to that first appearance in court, while all others would be held until that first court hearing. At that first court hearing, individuals would generally be released unless the district attorney made a strong case that there were no conditions under which an individual would not commit another crime or would appear in court at future dates if required. So in terms of, and the final piece, is that no one would be charged fees as a condition of release. There can be conditions for release on individuals who are considered medium risk to high risk, or if the judge deems that it's appropriate. These can include things like an electronic monitoring system, et cetera, but individuals could not be charged for that. So in terms of the fiscal, this means that for the costs related to this new pretrial release process, it would be potentially in the mid hundreds of millions of dollars. It would depend on how it was being implemented. So it could be more or less. In terms of county jail costs, it would be a decrease, possibly in the high tens of millions of dollars annually. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much. All right, so the legislature passed this as a law in 2018. And then, we have the referendum process, which is essentially after the legislature passes something, it can be put on the ballot to be approved by the people. So it's called the people's veto sometimes. And so that was used in this case. An election lawyer named Thomas Hilchak is the one who is behind getting this put up for referendum for the people. So the California Democratic Party is in support. They are the majority in the legislature that passed it in the first place, doing away with cash bail. And the Peace and Freedom Party is on that side as well. And then the opposition is the Republican Party and the Green Party. In support, we have the California Medical Association, the League of Women Voters, the Sierra Club, the Federation of teachers organizations, nurses organizations, other unions, Governor Newsom, and many Democratic state legislators, which makes sense because they passed it. And then in opposition, we have the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, business organizations, essentially, the Farm Bureau, and then, of course, the bail agents, right? Because essentially what this would do is do away with their business if we didn't have to pay money for bail. I shouldn't say we, people who are accused of crimes. And then in support, as far as newspapers, we have pretty much every newspaper in the state that took a position supporting, and we don't have any in opposition. The money side, we have some union money on the pro side, some individuals, and then, which doesn't add up to a ton. And then on the opposition, of course, we have bail companies, right? Insurance companies and bail bonds organizations that would be out of business, essentially, if we didn't have any cash bail anymore. And so we have about 12 million in favor and about 10 million against on this one. So big dollars, but not as big as some of those that we've seen already. All right, the questions on this one. What's the formula for assessing risk exactly?
Yeah, so there are various tools that have been developed by nonprofit organizations and academic institutions. They are tools that basically use data to take a look at traits, certain traits like age, et cetera, of individuals, and what traits lead to individuals being more likely, at least according to data, to committing another crime or failing to appear in court. And so depending on the inputs, about an individual, it will output sort of a score that is then categorized as whether you are a low risk, medium risk, or high risk. Sometimes they're more specific in terms of they're, for example, medium risk for a certain type of crime, or it's like a medium risk for committing another crime, or specifically failing to appear. So they're different. There are a variety of tools that are available.
So one question a lot of people are bringing up is, does that algorithm have racial bias cooked in?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. When SB 10 was amended kind of at the very end, this is actually where a lot of criminal justice reform organizations actually split. There are a number of entities who ultimately opposed SB 10 for this particular reason, in terms of these tools are based on data that has been collected over time. And so to the extent that the criminal justice system is biased towards individuals, minorities, essentially, or other biases, that will be reflected in the tool because your tool is only as good as the underlying data. That being said, just to kind of provide a fair and balanced approach, the other perspective is that individuals are concerned that under the current system, judges are sort of making those decisions, and judges equally, depending on how they approach it, you could argue also have implicit bias. And so I think that's one of the key issues of debate.
Has this, was the 2018 revocation of cash bail in effect the last 2 years, or did the referendum stop it?
No. So when a referendum qualifies for the ballot, it goes on halt. And so this would have gone into effect October 1st of 2019, but it did not. If this goes into effect, the legislature has recently passed another bill that would mean it goes into effect October 1st of 2021. And the only reason for that is there was buffer room to allow for implementation, allow for courts and probation departments, et cetera, to get up to speed. And because this referendum qualified, they didn't have the opportunity to do that. And so the legislature basically said, we're going to make sure you have that time.
Does this evaluation tool take into consideration a person's living situation or psychological state?
So there are a lot of tools, so I will say that I am not an expert in terms of every component. In terms of living situation, there is frequently a question related to family situation. It looks sometimes at family ties and community ties. The psycho-emotional state, I would say, that one, it could be a factor when there is someone that is using the tool and using the tool to help them make a decision. And so like if someone was saying, we've got some concerns related to mental health, et cetera, that would be factored in. In terms of other psycho-emotional, because I've seen psycho-emotional also kind of be reflected in terms of, are there other conditions? It depends on the tool. Sometimes they'll ask questions about, prior history, etc.
Okay. And remind us again, does support mean we're supporting the law that was passed already?
So you vote yes if you want the changes to go into effect. You vote no if you don't.
So yes means cash bail goes away.
Cash bail goes away, and this new tool, this new process goes into effect. Yes.
Okay, great. Is there one statewide algorithm or tool?
No, not under SB 10. SB 10 requires the judicial branch to basically come up with a list of evidence-based tools. But each county would generally have the flexibility to select which tool they wanted to use or combination of tools. I don't think they're held to actually one. They could use multiple ones if they wanted to.
Okay. Wonderful. I think we've got the questions answered. Thank you so much for your help.
No problem. Thank you so much.
All right, so a few little things to wrap up. We have some resources here on this reference list. IGS at Berkeley, the Institute for Governmental Studies, has a nice rundown of a lot of tools, nonpartisan organizations. These videos will actually be linked from their site eventually. California Choices is related to that. Ballotpedia is very helpful. Voters Edge. All of those are useful organizations to get additional information. We wanted to thank the Retirees Association of Sacramento State for helping support this effort, and also the College of Social Sciences and Interdisciplinary Studies and the Department of Political Science. And we also wanted to let you know before you go that the videos from this event will be available hopefully tomorrow afternoon on the website for the Project for an Informed Electorate. So the URL is csus.edu/ssis/pi. And they will be subtitled in English. And then a day or two later, we'll also put up subtitles in Spanish. So if you have people that you would like to share these with, especially those who would like the Spanish subtitles that haven't been reached before when we've done this event, please do share that information with them. Also, we will have the initiatives. Well, you could watch the entire event, but we'll also have videos per initiative. So you could just go back to ones that maybe you wanted to review again, or that you wanted to share with people. So once again, thank you to so many people for sticking around for this event and showing up for the virtual version of it. And hopefully we see you again in 2 years. So thanks to everyone who participated. Thank you to the Legislative Analyst's Office, very generously volunteering their time to do this. The Public Library for being our partner in this all these years. And people from the Sacramento State President's Office who really helped put this together behind the scenes as well. So thank you so much to everyone, and good night.